Homework. I think of dissonance as little clues left by the composer for where he is and where we might focus our attention. Two notes, one half step apart and left alone, are indeed dissonant sounding. Now jump down a diminished fifth. You don't have to be a musician or know music theory to understand this, but we call it a tritone, an interval so dissonant that it was banned by the Catholic Church. And now add a whole step above it. Now play it again up the octave. Now you have a crunch here and again an octave higher. Can you hear it? Now just remove the middle notes of each of the two crunches and the dissonance is still there, but living in different counties. Now, put the original half-step dissonance back in the middle with the outer notes holding them in place, in context. And now we get a beautiful melodic collaboration of heart, mind, substance, soul, and mathematics. And it's composed of absolutely nothing but dissonance. Conversely, play a major chord. It's both easy on the ears and allowed by the church. But now play the next major chord, a minor third above the first one. And then one more major chord, a half step above that. Repeat the pattern. How does that feel? It's a foreboding feeling to me, and is composed with no dissonance whatsoever. The point is, it would do us well to understand ourselves, our own lives, in such complete context as this music, so that we can quit judging what we do not understand in others, and also find our intent and purpose intact and not banned like the diminished fifth did. Here's to dissonance, here's to consonance, here's to living a life of free thought, mind, and spirit. Welcome to Aristotle's prayer. So what I'm going to do for you today is try to share with you my perspective, because there's absolutely nobody that can argue with it because it's mine. And I earned it, as you can see by looking at me. It's mine, it's wholly mine, it's my insight, it's my life, it's where I got my inspiration, it's where I got my money. I'm not sure there's any left, but there was. And so I'm here to share that with you. Just quickly, some background. I got in the music business because my mother heard me singing in the shower in the 9th grade. Well, that's about the scariest thing I've ever said. I don't know why she was in earshot. She made me audition for the choir, and I didn't make it, but I made it the next year. And then I enjoyed it. I went to school with Willis Allen Ramsey that wrote Muskrat Love. Anybody? Yeah? Muskrat Susie, Muskrat Sam, do the jitterbug out of the muskrat. Yeah. And we were friends, and he took me to Sears to buy my first guitar. I don't have it anymore. So from there we'll cut straight to the chase. I went to Sam Houston State University after a short stay at A&M, doing a lot of push-ups and shaving my head. And I stayed there for 6 years, and at near the end of my tenure there, I had 5 jobs. One was the minister of music at a Presbyterian church, directing the choir, singing. I was the graduate assistant at the university, directing an 80-voice choir, which was only at Sam Houston could that happen when it was a small enough school to accommodate a graduate student having a choir that big. I had the Gary Powell Band, which was somewhere between 5 and 11 pieces, and we drove all over Texas playing gigs through that period of time. I was the tennis pro at Elkins Lake, which is a resort community, for 3 years. And I was the music teacher at the Goree State Prison for Women for 2 years. Now, those girls, they wanted me to start a country western band. The warden said, we need a country western band for the rodeo, back in the days when they had the rodeo in Huntsville. And I went, okay, I'll audition. So I had auditions in the prison, that's a weird thing to do. And there weren't any country singers, but we had these jazz R&B girls that had worked in Dallas and Houston, and they were awesome. So I put them together with another woman that played piano, who had her master's degree in jazz piano, and she was awesome. Everybody in this little group of 5 singers knew more about music than I did, and I had a master's. And those girls taught me how to sing, and I will always love them for that. They taught me how to sneak contraband around the prison system too, which was kind of cool. Okay, one story. So they were in there, and they said, bring us some soda pop. So bring in those 2-liter bottles of soda pop, and they had this thing called legging that they could walk through the prison with anything up their skirts, that they could walk and squeeze it between their legs and walk like this, even a 2-liter Coke bottle. So I started sneaking them in all kinds of stuff. One was Super Tacos, because they saw it on TV. They said, bring us some of those Jack in the Box Super Tacos. Wow, down the street. I don't know what you're going to do with that information, but I wanted you to know. All right, so I'd like to, of course, we're going to talk about the Disney stuff, even though I'm contractually non-compliant to even say their name out loud, because this is the first problem with the music business, is how we shelter our musicians. We sequester them, is a better word, from any income-producing activity. Oh, I could go dark so bad right now. So it's something we have to watch with. Those contracts that come through are generally, here's your contract, sign it or don't. There's absolutely nothing in it that's negotiable. Because everybody says, Gary, why didn't you negotiate a better contract? I said, because there's 7,000 other people like me who want this job that will take this one. And they know it, and they will sign it. And so I'm signing. So for 20 years, the contracts came in, and I would look at them, and every contract for every record was this thick. And I read the first one. After that, I went, because it was that distasteful. Somehow I survived it and actually prospered in the system. And then after they understood what all I could do, they were anxious to keep me there and to keep me happy, and it all turned out really well. The average stay for a music producer and composer at the Walt Disney Record Company was 3 years, and I've made it for exactly 20 years to the date, October 15th, 1989 until 2009. Okay, are there any questions so far? Comments? No?
How old are you?
I'm listening.
I'm 62. I'm 82 in billable hours. You all may not understand this, but we in the music business and the studio business particularly, for 20 years I worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week. I got a couple of days off here and there, and a 2-week break in August, because nobody makes records in August. All the Christmas records are made in June. So every June I'm doing Christmas. So when Christmas comes along, I'm just sick of it, because I've already done it that year. So yeah, that's how it works, and that's part of the deal. and you don't know whether it's day or night in the recording studio. It's day when you go in maybe, and it's maybe 3 in the morning when you come out. There's no way to know. People that do this as a job have a special capacity. I always think that they would make excellent submarine sailors because they eat spartanly, they like small spaces, and it's dark. All right. There's some things I don't like about the industry as it is now. Let's talk about them real quickly. Here's some things I don't like. I'll pick on a little bit of everybody right now. If I hire, let's say I want to make a jazz record. I know who to call, and I'll call and do a little jazz trio, maybe with a horn, maybe 4 jazz players. And I've already written the charts, and I hand them the charts. They play, they're the greatest players there are, so they do fabulously. We cut the entire album, maybe in an afternoon. And then I mix it. Another day I spend mixing it, and it's all pretty static, meaning there's, after you mix one song, all those sonic decisions can be ported over to the next song. That album sells for, let's go back to the CD world. It sells for $15. If you buy it on iTunes, it's $10, right? Okay, fine. If I decide to write a symphony and I want to hire the London Philharmonic, it'll take me 6 to 9 months to write it, and it will cost $400,000 to hire that symphony to play it. There's also a trip to England involved, and then a trip back home, and then I'll spend another month, maybe 2 months mixing it. So we're talking about a year commitment, and add it all up, it's going to be well over $500,000 to do it. Guess what that album sells for? $15. Okay, who would do that? It's stupid. If it's about money, I can make a jazz record in an afternoon. If it's about, I'm not judgmental about styles, by the way. If it's about symphonic music, I was about to go into my J mode, but I just quit. There's this orchestral thing. It's harder to do it. You need to have some outside support because not very many individuals can or willing to have the capacity for or the resources monetarily to produce that kind of music. Okay, everybody with me so far? I think you business guys, and there's plenty of business guys in here, that I think what you call that is a capped market. Is that the right term? Dave, is that the right term? So this is how much it costs, period. So under the same financial agreement, you could buy a little Kia, and the top of the line Mercedes would cost the same thing. They'd all cost $12,000. Now, what do you think? You think Mercedes is going to do that? No, they're not going to do that. They got engineers to pay. They got some of the smartest people in the world to pay. They're not going to do it. So I don't want to do it either. I want to deliver the top quality music I can, and the Walt Disney Company allowed me to do that with budgets that were not so constrained as I couldn't pull it off. I had to be clever, but it wasn't so constrained that I couldn't pull it off. And it was all done here in Austin with Austin musicians in my recording studio. And I went to LA only to record character voices. Little Mermaid, she and I are like this. We are tight. I had her picture, and I wanted it on the wall. She said, "What do you want me to say?" I said, "To this coolest guy ever." She went, "Okay, Gary, the coolest guy ever." All right, is everybody with me so far? So what do we do when we're a musician, and we start out when we're young, probably by having a band, and the things that get on TV are generally band-centric. It's an easy place for handles for people to understand. I think it's because when people play in rock and roll bands, they sweat. So they look hard, they look like they're working harder. Thank you. And they pose, and you remember rock and roll poses and all that stuff. And it's easy to do press on them. They're generally misbehaving, or they're doing something incredibly philanthropic because they've got a lot of money. So between those things, there's a lot of stories to cover. Recording session singers, they come out to Oak Hill, they walk in my studio, they play these amazing things kind of like this. They'll make a face, that's about it. They'll leave with their check, they'll go home to their wife and kids, they'll take somebody to a soccer game, and then the next day they'll go do it somewhere else. And they'll make, depending on the project, in my studio, double, triple scale, $500 a song, maybe. Singers make somewhere between $300 and $1,000 a song for coming over and singing for 20 minutes. So it's not a bad deal. Austin's not a huge market, so consequently, there's not a living wage in the recording studio for these people because there's just a few studios that hire these people. But these musicians should have a sustainable life. And how can we do that? How can we create a way for a person to, they don't need to be stars. They need a sustainable wage. They probably need dental insurance. That's what I've come to know. And they need some kind of retirement plan. They need health care. They need a car. They need gas. They need a place to live. And they need an air conditioner in Austin. And I think that's not too much to ask. And I think they should be able to do that. So when they're playing in venues in Austin and making $50 a head for 4 hours of work, I think the strategy for changing that is to say no. I won't do it. And if there are blenders in the building that singers are trying to sing over, I think they should leave. And they should say it up front. I don't play with blenders. It's not hard. I don't play. We've already talked about it. Who did I talk about that with? Because this is a venue owner. What's the name of your place? And I asked him, I said, do you have blenders? Because I'm about to upset you. You mix those little colorful drinks. Margaritas and they... Yeah. There's also a vocal group called the Blenders, which I'm not talking about them. So how do we get them there? We don't know yet. My hope was that when we moved into the social media realm, that something would change, that there would be a way for us to, I had adopted these strategies early on, 2004 or 5, I was deep into it, saying, wow, this is great. I can continue to do the music I want to do rather than what a corporate entity wants me to do. And I can push it out to my audience, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blog, however many, there were 5, I don't remember what the 5th one is. And I pushed it out constantly. And now that we had the ability to place our music directly to iTunes, fabulous. You've got international distribution all over the world. And I have the audience. So I go, wow, if you're making about $1 per tune, you're making 70 cents per tune. So if I sell 10,000 units, that's $7,000. And the average little rock and roll, easy, not too much going on, that was about the budget with corporate music, about $7,000 a song. So I said, if I can replace the $7,000, I can do this on my own and I'll actually make more money. So I adopted it quickly and it was not successful. We can talk about why it wasn't successful. So I put up 51 pieces of music to iTunes. Same writer, same arranger, same studio, same musicians, same singers. Everything's the same. And to this date, since I think they put the first one up in 2007, it's been, 6 years. I've now grossed $1,113. So I told TuneCore, I said, let's just wait till this turns into a check that I can actually have lunch on. And so 51 pieces of music. And who paid all those people and who did it all? I did. So I took the risk, I put it out there, I engaged the entire social media thing, and I came up with virtually nothing. Now that's not the story you're going to hear on the press. The story you're going to hear is about the cellist that writes music and she puts it up and she quit her job because she was making so much on iTunes. So I looked up her site. She's actually quite good. Zoe, her name's Zoe?
Zoe.
Keating? Okay. And I looked her up and I said, how is this possible? This doesn't work in my world, I don't think. What am I doing wrong? And I looked at her and went, well, look at Zoe. And then look at me. This is not hard to figure out. Zoe's a babe. She got a cello and she's a babe. So I need to hire one of you, not the guys, to do a little photo shoot to maybe work a little harder. There's so many things to selling a record and what sells and what doesn't sell. And here's what musicians can do better to engage this. Musicians are generally myopic. They're turned inward. They're on their instrument, trumpet, I don't care what it is. They're into their instrument and they live there and they practice there. And then when they finally make an album, they will make the entire album before there's ever a business plan. They've got no idea what to do with it because they really believe, and I'm guilty of this, so it's okay for me to say this, that the music is enough. It will be so fabulous that nobody will miss it and they'll prosper from it. Well, it's not the case. That's not the story you're going to hear because the news is going to pick up some little guy that recorded in his bathroom with a laptop and there was some quirky, cool thing about him and he got on YouTube and he got 2 million views because of maybe he sang in the bathroom with the shower running and the dog was in there singing with him. I just made that up, but something like that. And all of a sudden the record company sees him, he makes money and he's making 50 grand a month. I want you as the audience, where's your place in this? I want you as the audience to quit thinking that that's the norm. It's not real. 1 every 10 million people? How many musicians are there on Facebook? I think we're well over 10 million now that are trying to make something happen. So when you hear one story, please don't explode it into something that it is not for the rest of us. But that myopic thing where we stay in one place and we don't play well with others hurts us as musicians. Here's what we can do better. If you were all musicians, I want to hang out with you. I want your business cards today. I want to set up a networking meeting. I want to go, what are you doing? You got an album come out? When? Okay, in April. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my audience of 10,000 people that follow me. What do you got? I've only got 5,000. No problem. Let's do it. You do mine, you do yours. And we create these networks of individuals. We share audiences. We work together. We make teams. And we might be able to do this without having a whole marketing thing behind us. And we can watch ourselves our backs. We could say, your video's really crappy looking. The other guy says, yeah, but crappy is good because slick's no good. We don't want slick. He goes, really? Maybe mine's too slick. Whatever your feeling is about that, we will have the conversation and we will come up with a plan. Business people do this all the time. Startups do this all the time. Every successful business plan, there's people coming together and they're banging heads and they'll argue and they'll inspire one another. Look at Lennon and McCartney. Boy, this is holy ground I'm stepping on now. Take either one of those two guys away and it's a different ballgame. Together, they were awesome. And why? I suspect that there's a couple things. They challenged each other. They drafted off each other's inspiration. And this is the piece nobody wants to hear. They were competitive with each other. So they brought their ideas in. And the other guy said, man, I can do better than that. And then you write, well, name your song. Yesterday. The other one said, John, you're too complex. I'm like, yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. And they went, oh my God, it's brilliant. And now we've got Lennon and McCartney, even though we know which guy wrote which song. They created a little business team, and it worked for them. Oh, that's such a small part of the story. There's another guy who had my job, who I resonate most with, called Sir George Martin. So I got a call, this is about 10 years ago, and this lady with a British accent said, Gary, this is from London, and I'm calling for Sir George Martin. Would you please, can you take his call? I went, who's Sir George Martin? I wasn't used to the sir. I went, who's Sir George Martin? And she didn't call me, it was on my answering machine. I said, so I asked somebody, who's Sir George Martin in London? I don't know anybody in London. And they said, George Martin? I went, no, it's not George Martin. So I call him back. I said, somebody's punking me. So I call him up and said, I'm going to go for it. So I called up and they answer the phone. And she says, oh, Gary, thank you for calling. George is at home. Would you please ring him at his residence? I went, oh, they're so good. Surely there's a camera on me someplace. Gaines, I just now recognized you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Gary.
So I called his home number, and George didn't answer the phone, but his wife did. I said, this is Gary Powell. I'm in Austin, Texas, and George's office told me to call him at home. Oh, Gary, so thank you for ringing us. He says, George is expecting your call. Please hold on. Am I really? And by now I'm going, am I really going to talk to George Martin? Of all the people of every celebrity that's ever worked in music or in anything else, the one person that I would like most to meet was George Martin and talk to. So he answers the phone and says, hello, Gary, this is George. How are you? I went, oh my God, it's really him. So I said, okay, before you say it, I have no idea why you're calling, before you say another word, of all the people in the world that I could meet in the music business, they would all be you. I want you to thank you how you changed my life in high school, and I want to thank you for inspiring me to be the best musician I can be. I said, I know you get sick of hearing it, but I said it. He says, oh, Gary, I never get sick of hearing it. Anyway, that was my connection with George. He came to Austin, he did a session, they hired me to hire the singers, what they call a music fixer. We call them contractors here. And I got to meet him and I got a picture with him, and it's the only celebrity thing I have in my studio. I love it. I'm not a fan of celebrity. Celebrity is the only thing we got to offer these young people. Why is it that the best opportunity for a young performer to have a sustainable career is to go on some lame, corporate-controlled, silly, ridiculously aggressive legal constructs on a talent show on television? Why is that the answer? I don't like it. I encourage people to not do it. If they're really good, I said, don't do that. We're going to do an end run around that. So I've got these really wonderful young singers parked all over Texas waiting for me to have the answer for this. Lubbock, Temple, well, 2 in Buffalo, New York, 1 in California, Irvine. And they're not just a little bit good, they're way good. And I said, wait on me. I'm just about to figure this out. But I met with the entrepreneurship guys at UT yesterday. It's the think tank. It's the guys at the top of the game that run the entrepreneurship programs and incubators all over the campus. How many were there, Gail? 15. 15 smart, highly functioning, brave, aggressive, wonderful human beings. And I told them, I just want to hang out with you guys. Can we go get a beer and just continue this? Because this is so inspiring. So I'm figuring with their help, with their business acumen, and with my passion for what we're going to do with music, and how we're going to not just discover people, but we're going to help them create sustainable lifestyles. We're going to help them musically. I'm going to be George Martin. I'm going to make sure the music's fabulous. And then we're going to offer it to you. And you're going to change your mind about music being free. And you kids that are in here that steal music, I'm going to thump you in the head back in the hallway. If you're using BitTorrent software and you're not paying for it, you are upsetting the general principles of what made this country great. Did you get that on the video? You are screwing up the thing, and you were all lovey-dovey, and it should just be free. Okay? If you do that, you're going to have a particular kind of music. And you know what it's going to sound like? It's going to sound like the music you've got right now. Okay, I told you I was going to take this dark. Now, there's a lot of people that's going to disagree with that. Music should be free. It should be free, and there's other ways to make money. Right? How many other ways? How many times do I have to be told that, Gary, would you do this project? It's going to be really good for your career. I'm 58 years old. This came in when I was 58. And thank you for reminding me. Gail's my new agent. Y'all know Gail Height?
She's wonderful.
She is. I met her at one of these things last fall, and it was fabulous. So how to take control of your digital life and not have it run over you, presented by
Andrew Dillon, Dean of the School of Information.
Well, no wonder he was so good. It was fabulous. So I met Gail after that event, and then I feel like she adopted me as a project, as a working project. All right. So music should be free. We'll make money somewhere else. We'll sell stuff. We'll incrementally say, do this. We'll do Kickstarter. We'll ask for money. We'll ask for it. Mercedes-Benz builds a car and they go ahead and drive it. If you like it, come back and buy another one later. And we've got a new Kickstarter campaign, and we need to raise $178 million to create this new car for you. Give us $20. You know how I feel about it. It's not that I'm stuck in my old ways. I'm stuck in the old American ways. And I'm not likely to change, but I am likely to find another way to do this beyond playing in bars with blenders for $50, not being able to make a payment, having no health insurance. Let's stop right now and let's do some for a few minutes, and then I've got another thing we'll take on. Who's got something? It can be Q&A. You can make a comment. I don't care. Yes, sir.
All right, so when I was a lot younger than either one of us is right now, I used to get albums in the mail. There was some kind of thing going on.
The Columbia record club, probably.
No. This was, they were white, not Beatles. They were white covers, and from the company that sent them was a record company, and they said, listen to this music, put it on your record player, your LP record player, and listen to it, and tell us what you think about it. And they were sending this out, as I understood, in a lot of different places. And some of us were helping make the decisions of what ended up going up there. I think a lot of the indie music today is probably a backlash from all the A&R guys that said, if you'll play music just like this, we'll make you a star. But the thing that's missing, in high school and college, sometimes I'd buy 10 albums at a time. The music that was coming out in the 60s and 70s was phenomenal. It was different. It was fresh. We're not seeing that much of that anymore. I'd love to see more of that.
Well, we're not, and here's why we're not seeing it. I don't like the word slick. When you do a record that it's well performed, the musicians play tight, the guitars are in tune, the singers are in tune, the harmonies are well thought out, and it's a great song, not unlike what the music you're talking about. It gets a bad rep with the current music makers, which I'm calling the young people that are in bands. They should be in bands. It's a great training ground for what's going to come next. And in every band, I guarantee you there's one person that's extraordinary, that's going to go on and have a film career, going to be a songwriter. They're going to actually make a great living. One of them, maybe two. But since slick is not allowed very much, except in extreme pop, which is attached to extreme sexuality and extreme, I wanted to use the word emptiness. I don't know if that's right or not. Is that we have the roots people making the albums. And the roots people, they sweat, they're impassioned. And it's not so much about the music, I'm sorry, in that the music is simple. It's nothing a ninth grader couldn't learn. And they can play. And so they have to lead with something else. In the absence of having horn parts like Earth, Wind, and Fire, they have to do something else. So they lead with emotion. Great, they lead with emotion. And so, but they lead with the emotion that they're aware of, and that's generally anger and insecurity. So that's what goes into the songs, that's what dumps out into the public, and now we have an enculturated subset of people that are making music, and that's what's going out because it's easy to market, because it's easy to see. It's easy to see. It's not necessarily easy to listen to. It's easy to see it. It's easy to see the passion. And then all that entire generation sees the passion. They attach to it because they're not ready for the next thing. And now you've got this whole movement with that kind of music, and then you're stuck with it until something else changes. Till Michael McDonald comes along and changes how he plays those chords, and now everybody does that for 10 years. Sir.
Is it that there isn't actually new, fresh music coming out? Or is it that there's so much, because everybody can make a record, it doesn't cost a lot of money, not like it did, to make a record, but there's so much that it's impossible to find the stuff that would actually resonate with you. Or a lot more different.
How many of you all serve? This is Bill Small. He's a musician and a singer-songwriter and a smart guy, and we've known each other for a long time, and he's sung several tracks for Walt Disney Records. He's a trusted, good friend of mine. So how many of you all surf in iTunes? Do you go to iTunes and go, well, if you like that, and they've got this predictive software, right? And you look around and you go, wow, that's really good, I'm going to buy it. Does anybody do that anymore? You do? Will you ever buy something? Oh, when's the last time you bought something? You don't even show me your hands. It'll just make me go darker. I like the sense of discovery. I like going there and finding the small little record that got made in somebody's living room that maybe it's not the best quality in terms of recording technology, but maybe there's some heart to it. Maybe there's a lyric that's, oh my God, that's so awesome. And maybe there's something to resonate with and that we love. So I recommend that you do that, and I recommend in talking to you as a group of people is try to buy some music. It's pretty simple. And if you use Spotify, I want you to turn around 3 times and spit. I don't know what that means. I heard that on the West Wing. Sir.
You made the statement that you're looking for a new way of managing the music industry. And you said, I've got these singers and I'm trying to find that way, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. It turned out you also said something else that I think is really, really important, which is that people don't talk to each other in the business.
Yes.
Right. Now, I have reason to believe that one of the things you need to do is to develop a way for those people in the business now to really talk to each other about these issues. Because we now have a fair understanding that discovering these new ways of doing things come about from conversations that people have and interactions that people have instead of popping up in some one person's brain. So
Yes, that's how it's always been done.
right, and I do think that the reason why the other guy's winning is because they're talking to each other, the Disney group. And you're not talking to people. You've got the singers out there, and I don't know about you personally, obviously. But I do think that you need to develop a system of conversations within the industry among the people you're interested in order to discover this new way of doing business, these new ways of thinking about things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. The thing I'm trying to avoid is taking in performers or recording artists, let's call them that, and offering them up to the record companies in Los Angeles. I don't want to do that because I know what those contracts are like. And it takes a lot of success before those people ever make any money. Conley, you probably have some experience with that.
Yeah, well, I'm a TV director over, I guess, 15, 20 years. I worked with 2,500 bands in various capacities, directing, producing, whatever. One of the big things, it seems to me, is that part of it has to do with educating musicians. And that is that almost everybody that I've directed at various points in time, certainly the ones that fail to succeed on any permanent basis, we're all living a life, which was we're all going to be stars. And the fact of the matter is you're not. 95% of you are not going to be stars. 95% of you, the best you can hope for.
And that's a generous percentage.
Yeah,
Right.
but 95% will, 5% will make it for a small period of time. Maybe a half of 1% will make it for 20 years.
Right.
But the 95%, instead of trying to be stars, need to start understanding. My job is to be a musician for the next 20 years, because that's what I love to do. And I've seen so many people fail to do that in pursuit of stardom. And so that I think something needs to be done in terms of educating musicians to go, it's okay to be a musician, not necessarily a star. I think one of the
Yes.
certainly I've observed over the last.
Yes, and you talk to the guys from the 1 O'Clock Jazz Band at North Texas State University, and they understand that.
Yeah.
They play gigs. They play real gigs. They go on TV and play gigs. Half the guys that played on Johnny Carson band was from the 1 O'Clock Jazz Band, and they continue to populate, those kind of bands. And yes, let's do that, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. I met you several years ago. Eric Hogan and I played for your wife's 50th birthday.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
My name's Terry Hale. I'm president of the Austin Federation of Musicians. Nobody's mentioned that yet. For 40 years, I've been working with MCA recording artist George Strait. We put this band together in 1975. We've got 4 out of the 5 original players still in it. The 5th one was killed in 1996 by a hit and run driver here in Austin. We've been on MCA Records for 31 years. We just signed another 5-year contract with MCA. We're going to quit touring at the end of next year. So what I want to say is that there is an organization already in place that looks after the interests of musicians. When I retire, I will have a pension from the American Federation of Musicians. I will have a pension from George Strait, Inc. And if you don't take care of business, you're going to lose. It's going to run right over you, and it's going to leave you in the dirt. And we have contracts. We have minimum scale here in Austin. A union musician cannot work for less than $70 for 2 hours. And I keep getting calls from people all over town needing a bass player, which is what I do. Come play the new place over here on Rainy Street. $30, a drink ticket, and a half-price meal. I've raised 2 kids, put them both through college. I own my home. I own all my cars. I don't work for $30. It's ridiculous, and anybody that does is ruining it for everybody else. So if you need questions answered about what you can do in your business career as a musician, call the union. I'll be glad to talk to you. I'm not a union guy. I've been in the union. I've been a professional musician for 44 years. I've probably been in the union for 26 of those. But I did find that if you do not have protection, I have used the American Federation of Musicians to bring lawsuit against my MCA, Mafia Corporation of America. The American Federation of Musicians to bring lawsuits against HBO for pay-per-view. They filmed without telling us. It is a guard and it is protected. It's not a cure-all, it's not a be-all. I'm just saying, if you want a place to start, that's a place to start. And you can talk to other musicians there, and I'm all about, I don't care if you're union or not. If you're a musician, I want you to be able to stand up and tell somebody, I'm a musician, just like this guy says, I'm a teacher. I'm a dentist, I'm a garbage man, whatever. And that's what you do for your living. And you just gotta take care of business. That's my whole stance. You gotta look at it, you're a small business owner, you are your own business. If you don't keep records, if you don't keep track, if you don't write stuff down, you're gonna lose.
Will you come talk to our music business students at the Butler School of Music?
I'd love to. I've been trying to get this out. I've been president of this union for 5 years. Why Randy McCall asked me to do it, I have no idea. Why he thought, I'm not this kind of person. I've been spending the last 40 years on a bus with 11 other guys, okay? I don't fit well in public and socially correct positions. You can't tell it by looking at me now, but I used to skirt the lines of polite society pretty regularly.
Okay, so I've got resonance with right here. You know, we've got some resonance about what the solution might be. 7 o'clock tonight? The posse? All right, anybody, sir?
You know, Gary, you talked about Spotify. I come from a music family, like each year in entrepreneurship, and I found Pandora to be, for me, an incredible way to discover new genres, new artists.
Yes.
And I buy stuff
Yes.
off of it on the
Didn't I
regular.
meet you yesterday?
Yeah, you met me yesterday. I sit right next to you.
This is one of the guys I was talking to you about, the entrepreneurship guy. I'm telling you, these guys are awesome.
You have a great memory, buddy. But it would seem to me that the first step to do what you're talking about is to create a Pandora, Spotify for independent musicians. That would be attractive enough that people would want to go to it. I know I do the big $3 a month deal that they have, so I don't have to listen to the stupid ads. But I have found more new music from people I never knew existed.
And then do you go buy it?
Yeah, I do.
Because I'm on Pandora and I'll search. That's another great place to find music. Do y'all all use Pandora, don't you? Or know that? And I'll always go, if I hear something I click the thing, sends me over to iTunes and I buy it.
Yeah, I do that.
And I think it's my duty. Otherwise, I'm just listening for free.
Yeah, but I found stuff that I never would have found, and so that's a way, that's the easiest way, in my opinion, to get the word out, to get the music out to people, because people are very used to that type of.
But you're the exception.
Yeah.
I think what we're really, at least in my feeling, I think what we're dealing with here fundamentally is a cultural issue.
Yes.
It's what we, the arts in general, but music, we don't value it. My parents came from a generation where music transformed American life, it transformed culture, it informed people what was possible. And I find a lot of those people that came from that era, they're baffled by why music doesn't have that kind of power anymore, why people don't buy music. And as much as we say as a culture that we love music and that music is such an important part of our life, a lot of people don't pay for music. A lot of people go to shows and they're busy tweeting and talking to people and not really paying attention and trying to really understand what the artist is trying to do. We don't pay our musicians the kind of money that they should be paid. In an era when it used to be people like Chris Blackwell and Barry Gordy that were musicians and music fans that started music labels. No offense to McCombs, but now we have a lot of kids that are coming out of that have NDAs, and their idea of being a music fan is, limited to, American Idol or whatever the other issue is, and there's always been the commodity aspect of music. People say, they complain about, whether it's Taylor Swift or whatever other artist that it may be in pop idols. I mean, that's been going on since, Fabian. You can look at the Beatles. I mean, they were one of the largest merchandising entities that ever existed. And I just feel like, we culturally, there's something going on. Additionally, we have so many other things competing for our entertainment. I would agree with what he had said. In some ways, the democratization of the music industry, where everyone can have a distribution deal, everyone can be heard, has diluted things to a certain extent, because there's so much great music out there that's not being discovered because it's just impossible it's not getting the marketing budgets, it's not getting, there are exceptional labels out there, But it's just difficult now with people not buying it, and there's so much competition now with gaming and film and porn and whatever else that's competing.
That is the hardest music to write.
Yeah.
You got that wah 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 wah.
There's, you know, this kind of sense of, you know, entitlement, the culture that we
Yes.
brought together where we expect everything to be right now and free, and before we even finish a song, we're looking for whatever the next thing is.
Okay, I got two sets of resonance right here. One up here. We're almost agreeing something so we can take over the world. So Spotify. This brings up a personal story. I accidentally signed a license. I thought it was for Disney. It was not, for a song I wrote called "I Think I'd Be Perfect for You." It's been on 12 Disney records and it's made me a lot of money. And so I love this song. I thought, oh, great, it's going on another record. I signed it, I sent it back, and it was from Harry Fox, for all those who know that is. And then I got a statement in the mail, 9.5 by 12.5 envelope, Harry Fox. Wow, great, this is going to be a check. Has a full big statement in it for the song and what it was did. And I went, great. And I went, there's a check in it, big business check with the stub, and I pulled it out, and it was for 1 cent. So I looked at the postage on the envelope, and it was $1.10. This kept happening. So now every 2 weeks I get another check. The first 10 were for a penny each. These were all from the Spotify license that I had mistakenly signed. So you get, every time somebody streams your song, you get 1% of a penny. So if you get a penny, it means 100 people listen to your song. Okay. So the checks kept coming in. Now I have a stack this high. The biggest one was for 8 cents, and I was so proud. I went, this is getting, I mean, that's 800% raise. So all those checks now have added up, and I'm saying there's a couple dozen of them. All of them have added up to 67 cents now. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's the labels that are collecting most of that money.
I think you're right.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask if you've heard of the Local Music Project, the Iowa City Public Library initiative.
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I just learned about it myself recently. And it is what it says. They focus just on small bands that are based in Iowa City. It's a college town. People who haven't signed with labels. It's not really an answer to the revenue problem, but it is kind of a discovery tool similar to a Pandora or a Spotify. In that here is this like recognized cultural heritage institution, the public library, that is working out deals with small local bands. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, they just paid a band $100 to lease the music for a certain period of time. So again, it's not an answer to the revenue problem, but it does collect everything in one place, and then users can, download for free some of the tracks. And here it says on the website, local musicians have kindly and bravely leased us the right to offer it to you. You can thank them by going out to hear them play.
Please pay them. Please, would you mind pay them? Please pay for our Mercedes. It's a good car. We try hard on it. I'm sorry to keep bringing up that. But let me just, Martha Hilly's here. She's a faculty member at Butler School of Music in the piano division. She's an old friend of mine. And when I was at school, she's a lot older than me. And we were in school. What's that, babe? Well, I love Martha Hilly. Thank you for coming.
I love you back, darling.
And this person with this girl up here that looks a lot like Snow White. Mysteriously, her name is Leslie Highland Rogers, and she runs an organization in Austin called Symphony of Soul, and she places Austin musicians at a nice fee to go play for retirement homes, hospice things. What else, Leslie?
Thank you, Gary. Gary's on our advisory board, and yes, I'm a musician myself, and I founded this charity. We're in our 13th year Symphony of Soul. You can go to symphonyofsoul.org and check us out. We have about 75 musicians on our roster. And we pay musicians to serve everyone from infants to senior citizens. Jeff Lofton's on our roster, coping with everything from cancer to Alzheimer's to addictions, mental health challenges, etc. And I run it as a volunteer, so 95% of the donations that come in go to pay our musicians. And Jeff can attest to the fact that our musicians get paid $100 a pop, which is more than they often get playing in a club downtown. Now, what's wrong with that picture? I have to say.
More appreciative audiences, too.
Pardon me? Better audiences. They're much more appreciative.
And no blenders.
No blenders. You know, so what gets me so angry, excuse me, just dropped my phone. What gets me so angry in Austin is we say we're the live music capital of the world, but our musicians are living at or near the poverty level. That is wrong. And yet a charity like Symphony of Soul pays them better than they get paid doing gigs in public. Now, what I also have to say is this is a small charity. We rely on donations. It is hard to fundraise in this town because there's money out there, but it's mostly new money, younger money. There's not a tradition of philanthropy like you would have in an older city. And everyone wants their music for free. And I have had people say to me, well, wouldn't it be easier if the musicians just volunteered it? And I say, that ain't gonna happen. I'm not gonna do that.
You go, girl.
You go, girl. But, you know, I bring this up because one of the things that I am hoping and praying comes out of this conversation today is some kind of coalition or task force or something, because there are these various musical charities and organizations in town, like Swan Songs. Christine Albert and I are friends. I'm on her roster, she's on mine. But there's these various organizations. Why aren't we helping each other? Why aren't we sitting down, musicians and producers and all of us, and having these conversations like we're doing now, and really rattling up Austin? Club owners, come on, pay people. What's your problem? Pay the musicians, for heaven's sakes. More than a meal, you know, and I love this idea of a Pandora. What about one that features Austin musicians? You know, you travel to other cities and countries. Austin has a real cachet now. Well, let's capitalize on it. Let's make it not only the live music capital of the world, but a place where people make their living.
I'm with you, Leslie. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, that's my rant. That's my rant here.
So, thank you. Yeah.
I think one of the things that happens, what I've seen happen here, I first started playing in Austin in 1971, what I've seen happen is the city council and the city doesn't honor the musicians as they once did, because what's happened, it's become a festival town. You got the ACL coming, you have South by Who Cares, you have the Fun Festival, the Charming Fest. Every weekend there's a festival that features no local musicians. And it used to be, it was local musicians occupying everything around here playing. Now the city council is getting their revenue from these festivals, so they don't worry too much about the local guys.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to address a couple of those issues. I think those points are really well taken. Anyone is welcome to come to Music Commission, which is the first Monday of every month at City Hall. We have a very, I think, committed Music Commission. There have been some significant changes, and I say about the last 6 months. Nakia has recently joined the Music Commission at the recommendation of a musician working group that said, why doesn't the Music Commission have a working musician? And so the first vacancy that came up, Kathy Tovo appointed Nakia, and he's been a great contribution. Those kind of changes happened because musicians came to the meetings and demanded that that change be made. So there are changes that can happen. I think there are a lot of complicated things that have happened because Austin has grown so quickly. But just for on balance, I'd like to offer that Austin Music people 2 weeks ago had a hyper-local music festival. We're a small organization, just like Leslie's. I'm the only person who works there. We have no budget. But we were able to get 40 new people to become deputy voter registrars at City Hall. We registered 150 new voters in Travis County and gave a lot of cards out to other places. We had more than a dozen venues participating on the east side, Red River, including Holy Mountain, and a lot of others. All the bands were local. All the bands were paid. There were more than 100 acts participating. And it's one weekend. I know it doesn't compete with South by, and it doesn't compete with some of the other things, but there are people in the community, ranging from venue owners to artists to bookers, who want to make this happen. And it's the thin end of the wedge right now, so if we can just, as Leslie said, if we can find one another and start to work together, it would be great. There are over 130 music-related nonprofits in Austin, over 130. 15 of those are about music education for young people. And there have got to be economies of scale that we can find. There have got to be discounts at Office Depot, for God's sake. There have got to be things that we can get together and that we can't get separately. So please keep this conversation going after we leave the room. I know I'm talking to Gary again, Conor, because this is a really important conversation. And Gary, thank you for allowing us the space to have.
Well, we have a lot of smart people in here, and we have a diverse set of perspectives. And there may be detractors in this, but I don't see them just yet. And I'm so happy that you all are here and having this conversation. And I think it's probably one that should continue. And anybody that wants to talk about this ever, I'm more than happy to do it. I'm gonna close with this piece. I wrote it some months ago, but I found it today. It's the first chapter of the next book that I will write, that I will undoubtedly not publish for the same reasons that we've talked about. But I'm a composer, so I'm going to put a piece of music underneath it. Dissonance in music usually reads and leads to resolution. But in this life, I have found myself mired in the permanent dissonance of control, enticement, manipulation, and pretext. All the nouns that would have us give away our power to mediocrity or fear. There's no freedom in living the unconscious life, full of false hope and manipulated assumptions. After signing away my power, even hope and grace could not find me. But I secretly orchestrated virtue into the music that I wrote. And I have to trust that the virtue of math, color, tone, texture, counterpoint, and dissonance was indeed heard, especially by those with the freedom to just listen. That word freedom has been pressed into the service of the ones unwilling to risk anything, but ready to take everything. Real freedom demands an ascent of character and judgment. And in the most difficult times, it calls for risk and sacrifice and loss. Why is this so hard? Institutionalization and enculturation insipidly happen to all of us. The collateral damage from it is the collectivization of the human spirit, all while silently limiting our most heartfelt intention. This is the hijacking of the most resolute and powerful thing we humans have. Our individual aptitude, now conscripted into the service of the common good, but with integrity so compromised, the good is less than common, and the common is far less than good. And the music suffers, as do we. Before today, I learned slowly to grant myself authorization to move forward with untried and unfettered choices. There's no simple success story, and we don't need another myth. This is real. My own path, parallel to the study of music, has sometimes demanded scholarly pursuits and always long conversations, pondering the duality of human nature and its unspoken shackles. What's next? How we might avoid becoming emotional slaves to the desolate gestures of despair or the empty ambition of others. Regardless, the detractors of soulful, integrated, powerful music, I choose to win.